Welcome, everyone, to It's a Wrap with Rap. I'm your host, Ron Rappaport. Before we start, I would like to thank our listeners, sponsors, and supporters that have helped make this podcast so successful. The podcast is being heard in all 50 states, all provinces of Canada, and 44 countries around the world. Once again, thank you all so much. This podcast features people who have overcome life's challenges and adversities, people who can inspire, motivate, and educate us on an assortment of topics. My guest today is Fred Rutman. Fred, who currently resides in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, has been a marketing consultant and a college professor. After obtaining his MBA, his weight ballooned to 340 pounds. Fred has always been active in athletics, hockey, football, and rugby. In 2009, Fred was forced to take permanent medical leave due to randomly passing out due to his heart stopping, resulting in Fred becoming clinically dead dozens of times. He will discuss with us the results of these events and his subsequent discovery of intermittent fasting and how it changed his life. Fred is currently an intermittent fasting practitioner and traumatic brain injury survivor. Welcome, Fred, to the podcast.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate you having me and appreciate you giving us this platform.
Well, you're more than welcome, and it's great to have you. Fred, please tell us a little bit about yourself prior to 2009 and about your weight gain to 340 pounds. What caused that? Were you trying any weight loss plans to lose the weight, such as the calories in, calories out methods?
I guess I was blessed with a bunch of funky genes by my parents. Not that I'm absolving myself from any responsibility for the weight gain. But I was always a chunky monkey as a kid. And when I got older and, immersed myself in school and things like that, I just stopped paying attention to exercise and eating. And once, that avalanche starts, it's pretty hard to stop it.
Yeah.
And eventually around 2003, I think, I was tipping the scales at 340 pounds. So I'm not like an NFL lineman size, I'm only 5'7". So that was
I can understand that. Yeah, because I'm about the same height. And I know at one time I was up to like 200 and I felt like I was carrying an elephant around. So I can only imagine what 340 pounds is like.
Yeah, it wasn't fun, but
no.
It's sort of like that. What's the metaphor, analogy, parable about boiling a frog? You just turn it up a degree at a time, and the frog doesn't know it's getting boiled.
Yeah,
and it's the same with a weight gain like that, or something even worse, type 2 diabetes. Like I ended up being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes also in 2009, and I had no clue that I had type 2 diabetes. So
now when you were up to 340, were you trying any methods to lose the weight?
I tried to up my exercise. At work we had a gym on site at a very subsidized rate, so I was going to the gym every day and doing cardio, and I was slimming down a little. But like anytime you try and go on a diet, for the majority of people, it has results very quickly, but it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And that's what it was for me. And I eventually ended up, through a friend, going to see a bariatric doctor. And he tried me on, the calories in, calories out, mark down everything you eat. And you do that and you show him the results in the app and everything. And of course, like most doctors, they think you're lying because, the simple science says if you, eat less calories and move more, you've got to be losing weight. But that's not how the body works. The body doesn't know what a calorie is. It knows what nutrients are.
So can you tell us about bio-individuality when it comes to health issues?
Oh, wow. That's a big topic. Well, it starts with your genes, and it can we have epigenetic systems, which my understanding is those are the systems we can't see in our genes. So you can see how tall you are. You can see what color your hair is or your eyes are. You know, those are your expressive genes. Your epigenetic genes are the ones that run in the background. So we all have different tolerances with our genes and sensitivities and proclivities to be athletic or not athletic or whatever talents we have. But more than that, we have gut biomes. And our gut biomes have trillions of little bacteria. And these bacteria literally run your world. And they're just finding out more and more about it. And it's almost like a tribal system. You know, you've got the good bacteria that are trying to make you healthy.
Right.
And there's the bad bacteria, which are trying to defeat the good bacteria. And they send messages up the vagus nerve to your brain to tell you to do things and initiate cravings. And I'm trying to remember this doctor's name. He's an Israeli, Iran Elianov, perhaps. He's one of the foremost gut biologists in the world. And he says when you regain weight after a diet, when you do that rebound,
Yeah.
because of signals sent from your gut biome. And it wants to be in a better position to defeat the good bacteria. So it stacks the deck in its favor. It makes you put on those extra pounds. So it's not a willpower thing for most people. It's figuring out how to get your body running properly.
So
And most,
talking about that gut bacteria, are you a proponent of probiotics?
I don't know enough about it, but what I've read from Dr. Gabe Merkin. Some of your audience might know him. He used to have a national radio show. He says most of the probiotics we get off the shelf
Yeah.
are effective in a short term, or the prebiotics and probiotics. They don't seem to have any staying power, according to the research he's read. So they'll work while you take them, but as soon as you stop taking them, your gut biome reverts to its previous iteration. So going by that, no, you know, it's sort of like the entire supplement industry. It's very unregulated, and a lot of experts say, you know, you're just creating a lot of expensive pee in the toilet.
Gotcha. So the summer, Fred, of 2009 arrives and you start passing out. Tell us about that time period, please. And what was the response from your medical team treating the situation?
Wow. I have to put a disclaimer. I'm not trying to bash the medical system.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of good people in it. I just happened to run into a bunch of people who weren't on the high performing end at the
Gotcha.
beginning of this adventure. I didn't know how sick I was, to be honest. I mean, it wasn't until 3 or 4 months into this adventure, I think it started in May of 2009. I didn't realize I was passing out. I thought perhaps I had food poisoning, I had a flu, I had been working too hard, things like that. And then it escalated over time to where I could be walking down the street and I'd have one of these episodes. I called them brain quakes. So, you know, it literally felt like I was having an earthquake in my brain. And if you've seen fighter pilots going in high gravity situations, they get that black tunnel vision kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's what it was like for me. I had this brain quake, fade to black, and I collapsed and hit my head on whatever was in the immediate area. So be it a curb, a manhole cover, anything like that. And I really didn't know. And I had a combination of not having oxygen to my brain and a whole bunch of concussions in rapid succession. And that can really mess you up. The doctors didn't know what to look for. They kept trying to prove I was having a heart attack. So, you know, we've got this middle-aged 40-odd-year-old guy, overweight, probably doesn't exercise or eat the best. and he must be having a heart attack. So it seemed to me that they were trying to fit what was happening to me into a predetermined narrative instead of continuously, well, they were continuously testing me for the same thing, which are the enzymes that are created when you have a heart attack. And I forget what those are right now, but
Yeah, the cardiac enzymes go up.
yes.
Yeah,
So I wasn't having any of those. So I obviously wasn't having a heart attack.
right.
And you would think they would move off the spot and try and think maybe there's something else going on,
Yeah.
but they didn't until months later. And
So you're talking about a complete misdiagnosis.
complete misdiagnosis, miscommunication, uh, being dismissive of what I was telling them, being dismissive of the cardiac strips that the EMTs were showing them from when I was in the ambulance, and just dismissing them as, oh, there must have been something wrong with the machine. You can't possibly have an ECG strip like this.
So
They were
they didn't do any brain scans or anything like that?
nothing through this whole episode. I didn't have uh, one cognitive test, one MRI, one CT scan, not even a head X-ray, nothing. So I was sort of in nowhere land with what they were trying to treat me with.
Right.
And even when they figured it out and put me through my first surgery, they didn't give me any recuperation plan. There was nothing to address uh, my head issues, my concussions or anything like that. Just okay. We figured out there was something wrong with your heart. We put in a pacemaker. See you in 10, 15 years when the battery runs out.
Wow. So 2013. So apparently they put the pacemaker in what, 2009?
Yes.
Okay, it's 2013. The pacemaker fails, correct?
Yes, but we didn't know that initially because pacemakers don't generally fail.
Okay, so from 2009 to 2013, you're basically on a pacemaker,
Yes.
and that's it.
Yes.
Okay, so the pacemaker fails. So what was the response from the medical team on that?
Well, again, I ended up going to the hospital a number of times, and they couldn't figure it out because it wasn't something they were looking for. They look for pacemaker issues if they get an alert from the pacemaker manufacturers
Yeah,
that you've got a bunch of bad leads or a bunch of bad batteries. But a one-off with me, they weren't looking for that. And it took a number of visits before one of the other pacemaker surgeons took a look at me and put his hand on my chest where the pacemaker is, and he moved the pacemaker over, and it shorted me out right in front of them. And that's when they knew there was a big problem. They had to get me into surgery again.
so tell our audience what intermittent fasting is and how did you first learn about it?
Intermittent fasting, according to one of my doctors, is the most powerful non-medicinal medical tool that we have in the world today.
Wow.
And I first found out about it during a visit for a regular checkup to my cardiologist in February of 2018. I walked into his office, and he walked in and he literally threw a book at me. I'm hoping you can see this. I don't know.
Yeah, for our viewers on YouTube, you can probably see it. Maybe you could pull it back a little.
Yeah, I think it's the blurring thing in Zoom that's
Yeah,
fucking this up. It's called The Obesity Code by Dr. Jason Fung.
okay.
And this is the introduction to intermittent fasting. He's a nephrologist here in Toronto, and he got sick and tired of his patients being sick and tired and losing kidneys and limbs and stuff from type 2 diabetes. And he did his homework and he realized that type 2 diabetes doesn't have to be a chronic thing or a death sentence. And he's reversed thousands of people who have type 2 diabetes, gotten them off insulin, gotten them off a variety of other medications. Within 6 months of me starting intermittent fasting, I was off insulin. That's all it took. 6
Wow.
months of intermittent fasting. And my blood sugars are totally normal now.
So what exactly is intermittent fasting?
It's not a diet, it's a timed system of eating. So I think we all know how to fast.
Right. Just don't eat.
Yeah. And so a lot of people say I intermittent fast all the time between breakfast and lunch,
Right,
stuff
right.
like that. This is setting your body up to not eat for longer periods of time. We don't do crazy things like 15-day fasts or anything like that.
Right.
But you can start off with what's called a 16-8, which is you don't eat for 16 hours, and then you have an 8-hour eating window, which also doesn't mean that you eat for 8 hours, but you can have a meal or two, whatever makes you happy in that 8 hours. And nobody will tell you what to eat. And the more you fast, the more the epigenetics kick in. And the first thing that will happen if you fast is your basal insulin levels will start to drop. So most people think we only produce insulin when we eat, but your body is very finicky about how controlled your blood is, and pH and blood sugars and everything else that's going on in there.
Right.
And you're constantly pulsing out little bits of insulin, but you get big dumps of insulin when you eat. And the more basal insulin or floating insulin you have, the more your other hormones seem to get kicked out of whack. If you have too much insulin, it also contributes directly to the hardening of the arteries. So people think it's just plaque and stuff like that. No, if you have too much insulin, it hardens your arteries, and that's one of the reasons you get high blood pressure so quickly when you're overweight, is because your blood vessels, your veins and arteries can't expand anymore. And when you get those levels of insulin down, it self-corrects, and a whole cascade of other things happen. Gets rid of the inflammation in your body. So I would say, from playing all those sports and being so overweight, my body ached. Like before all this happened, every joint in my body hurt.
I
And really,
bet.
I just thought it was from all the abuse. But now I know it. I had body-wide inflammation. I had
Sure.
no idea you could have that, and that it had nothing to do with all the sports I played. And the intermittent fasting just got rid of that. I'd say within 3 months, I noticed a significant difference. So I'm now probably fasting for roughly 4 years, and I don't have an ache or pain in my body. I don't have asthma anymore. My diabetic retinopathy went away. My sleep apnea went away. I don't get migraines anymore. I rarely get a headache. And this isn't just me. I was the coach in a fairly big fasting group, and we just see this from thousands and thousands of people. So
Wow,
it's
that's
legitimate.
amazing.
Yeah.
So Fred, after learning about intermittent fasting, how did you change your diet? What foods did you delete, and what foods did you add?
Initially, nothing. I started actually because I was on so many medications and had all these surgeries. They were very cautious with me, and the doctor said start at 12-12, so 12-hour fast and then 12-hour eating window. And I started seriously doing this in May of 2018. And by the high holidays, when we have to fast for Yom Kippur, I was already fasting a 23-1 schedule. And I didn't plan this. I'm like most people, I can't fast for 20 hours, 25 hours, whatever. It just
Yeah.
happens so naturally. It seems it's what my body craved. And I almost felt guilty on Yom Kippur. You're supposed to feel guilty for a lot of things on Yom Kippur. But
Right.
I felt guilty that the fast was so easy for me compared to everybody else because I had been intermittent fasting.
Right. Right. So when you say you did a 23-1, were you doing the 20? You weren't doing the 23-1 every day, were you?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So you were only eating 1 hour out of the day.
Yeah, one meal. Whatever that meal is. I mean, when you were as fat as I was, you've literally got hundreds of thousands of calories for your body to burn.
Yeah.
So your body flips over to a system of using ketones for fuel instead of carbs,
Right.
and it makes your brain very happy. It gets rid of a lot of your brain fog. Um, you can just think so much more clearly. You're happier. Um, your serotonin levels go up. I mean, it's just seems like it's too miraculous to be real, but I see it over and over again. I see it with people that I've coached and talked to. Um, it's just a really great tool.
Are
Now,
you
I should
are you
add,
are you still, as we speak, on a 23-1 schedule?
no, I have switched my schedule. I had a major heart surgery, and then I had a really nasty bout of COVID and stuff like that. So it took me a while to get back to that. So generally, I do a 24 kind of fast, but on Sunday evening, I do we call a mealless Monday, or it's a modified alternative day fast. So I'll fast from Sunday evening till Tuesday mid afternoon.
Wow.
So anywhere between 38 and 40, 42 hours. So I should add, when I say fast, it's not a dry fast. It's, we're drinking water, black coffee, black tea, no flavorings, no sweeteners. So Jen Stevens, who's my fasting guru, and here's another book you probably can't see. Oh, maybe
Jen Stevens. Yeah, I see it.
Fast, Feast, Repeat.
Fast,
Um,
feast, repeat. Jen Stevens. Okay.
yeah. This is my fasting Bible. And I've learned the most about fasting from her. And Dr. Fung's book is very sciencey. Jen's is more focused on this is how to fast and tweak your fast so it'll be more more successful for you.
So I guess that leads into my next question. Does one have to be super restrictive about the foods you eat? And the answer obviously is no.
No. As you fast for longer periods of time, and I mean, over the months as opposed to longer fasts, you'll find that as your gut microbiome changes and all your hormones readjust and reset, you'll find yourself craving different foods. And you will find that food tastes differently. So things you used to really enjoy, you might
Yeah.
not enjoy them anymore.
Wow.
And that's sort of am I allowed to swear?
Well,
It's sort of a
what?
mind F
Okay.
for a lot of people. It's
Okay.
hard to reconcile these things.
Okay.
I know I should like this. I know I should.
So you're talking about
Why
things
don't
like
I?
chocolate, maybe things like that.
Yeah, the first thing I noticed for me was Twizzlers. I'm guessing you have Twizzlers in the States,
Yeah.
the licorice. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's the first thing. I was eating some and I was like, this just tastes like chewy wax. Like this isn't appealing at all.
Wow.
That was the first thing I noticed. And some people will find themselves more oriented towards a vegetarian or a vegan diet. Some people will find they go more to carnivore-ish. Some people have a more balanced diet. So that's part of the bio-individuality. It's going to
It's
lead you down a path, and your body's going to tell you what it wants.
yeah. Well, Fred, what are the important components of intermittent fasting?
I think the most important component, which is pretty common to most things you undertake, is your mindset. You have to be confident that the process works, and you cannot compare yourself to anybody else's progress. What's that phrase? Comparison is the killer of joy.
Yeah.
And because my body's had different traumas and weight loss adventures than your body and somebody else's bodies, it's not going to cure itself at the same rate. Particularly women who have gone through a lot of yo-yo dieting. It goes back to that gut biome. The more you've yo-yo dieted, the harder it is for you to lose weight. And intermittent fasting will probably take longer for you to see the weight loss. But as Jen Stevens says, it's more of a health program with a side benefit of weight loss.
Yeah. So it's not something specifically designed for weight loss.
No, it's just a really good benefit.
Right.
If you want to get into that suit or dress for your kid's wedding in 3 weeks, this isn't the program.
Okay.
You're looking for a crash diet, and then of course you'll gain everything back most likely.
Right.
This is a longer term solution, and I can't see myself not doing intermittent fasting. It's just been that good to me.
What was the eating window you started with, and how long does it take to increase the fasting times?
Because I was on so many medications, I started on a 12-hour split.
Yeah.
And I think by September, October, I was up to a 23-1, and it wasn't something I was actively pursuing. I just found myself getting to that, oh, I haven't eaten for 16 hours, but I'm not hungry. Okay, I'll just wait. And it happens like that for a lot of people. Your mileage may vary. I'm pretty sure it will.
Yeah. So you said your taste buds do change on this, right? And your cravings change.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I eat a ton more vegetables and fruit than I ever did. And things that I used to go, blah, to the broccolis and the
Yeah.
cauliflowers and
Right. That's the
stuff
first
like
thing that
that.
came to my mind.
Yeah, the Brussels sprouts, love them.
Wow. So what was the longest fast you've done, and what is the recommended maximum fast?
I guess it depends if you're on under a doctor's care or you're in like a clinical or hospital setting. For one of my surgeries, have to calculate the numbers. I decided to do a 36-hour fast before the surgery. And because they want you to fast before the surgery anyway.
Yeah.
And then the surgery went longer than it was supposed to, and then went through recovery. So I think it was around 90 hours unintentionally.
Wow. So you're talking almost 4 days.
Yeah, it was very unintentional, but when you have a heavy duty surgery, you really don't feel like eating much anyway.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't recommend that for most people.
Right.
A lot of people are fine fasting every day.
I've we have a lot of people in the cancer community listening to this. I'm a 2-time male breast cancer survivor. I currently finished my treatment for chemo and radiation. And I've read a lot before you do chemo, and maybe you've heard about this, people fast, and it makes the side effects less. Have you read anything or heard of anything in your group about that?
Yes. So we've heard that it helps you recover for a couple of reasons. One, cancer loves sugar, but most cancers cannot eat ketones. So if you switch over your fuel source, it makes it harder for the cancer to progress. And if it can't progress as much, there's less of it for you to be cured, or for it to be cured. So the theory goes. Try to remember the doctor's name, Thomas Freiberg, maybe. I think from Boston University, is a big proponent of fasting before and during chemo.
Yeah, and I also heard that if you don't eat, you fast before the chemo, the cells uh, slow down. So the division of them, and so therefore the chemo drug is going to go for the rapidly acting cancer cells and kind of stay away from the good cells. I don't know. I mean, that was one of the theories I read too.
Yeah, I can understand that, because if they aren't getting the sugar that they want that helps them uh, tumorize, or whatever the proper word is. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, they are going to slow down, and they're going to struggle, and it might make them easier targets. So I could buy into that.
So what are the benefits of intermittent fasting on the body and on the mind? Can you give us some of the benefits?
Sure. Um, when I used to do speeches, I had a list of about 40 things that people in the fasting group had reported. Um, one of the things that really ramps up is something called autophagy. And a Japanese scientist just won the Nobel Prize for this in 2016. And out of respect to him, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name.
Right.
So autophagy is one of these epigenetic systems that we have. And basically, it's your body's process for cleaning up wayward proteins in your cells. So proteins get misused and misappropriated, and they end up clogging up our cells, much like a clogged drain. So we have this process called autophagy that goes into the cells and starts cleaning them out. The more it can clean them out, the better your cell runs. So it's like getting a tune-up, or I don't even know how cars work anymore. Getting your spark plugs cleaned, that kind of thing, and you can produce more energy. The longer you go into a fast, up until about 40 hours, the more powerful the process of autophagy is, and the more it cleans out your cells and helps you. So it finds any sort of protein. So people report that all sorts of scars have disappeared, scars they've had for decades.
Wow.
Women have reported that their cesarean scars have disappeared, stretch marks have disappeared. I know the scarring I've got on my legs and my chest from my heart surgeries is drastically cleaner than people that have had similar surgeries around the time I did. That's the first thing that ramps up. The other thing that ramps up for many people is growth hormone. And this is particularly important for women because growth hormone is the major driver of bone density. And we know women are prone to osteoporosis as they age, and this helps fend off the osteoporosis.
So many, many benefits.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I have some rapid fire questions about intermittent fasting for you.
Okay.
Is a 16-8 fast more advantageous than a 12-12 fast?
I would think for most people, yes.
Okay. What liquids can you drink in the fast period?
I go by Jen Stevens' clean fast protocol. So it's only water or sparkling water with no flavoring or sweeteners, and only black coffee or black tea or green tea, again, with no flavorings or artificial sweeteners or sweeteners. None of the things like bulletproof coffee, because when your body's being given extra calories, it's gonna not want to fast. So it's sort of a self-defeating thing. There's a myth that you can have anything you want during the fast as long as it's 50 calories or less. So, but nobody's ever shown any science to prove that's true.
Okay. Are fast times different for men and women?
They don't have to be. There's also legend, and I'm not a woman, so I say this tentatively, but the group I coached in was 335,000 people, and 96% of them were women. And we did not treat them any differently. You have to be sensible during your cycles. when your body is preparing to go into your period.
Yeah.
It wants, your body will likely want you to eat a little more. And so you eat a little more those days. And, when you come to, if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, do not fast. I mean, it's just not good.
Okay. So it's a contraindication. Is exercise encouraged during intermittent fasting?
Yes. You have to be careful that your body has flipped the metabolic switch. So it's gone over to burning ketones very easily. But I was doing 90-minute bike rides in the Toronto heat, which is not quite as savage as the Florida heat, but it's 100 degrees with the humidex, and I was doing 90-minute bike rides, 38 and 40 hours fasted. I know people that do marathons fully fasted.
Wow. So other than pregnancy, what are the other contraindications for intermittent fasting? Things that you shouldn't, that you shouldn't have.
If you've had an eating disorder of any type,
okay,
we don't recommend you doing intermittent fasting. And if you do try it, it really has to be under strict medical supervision. And just, if you're on certain medications, like I was on insulin, so which is based on how many carbs you're eating with a meal. So because I was eating less and less and less, I had to keep going back to the diabetes clinic and get my glucometer recalibrated every few weeks.
right. Yeah, makes sense. Is there any age restriction to doing intermittent fasting?
Not that I know of. I mean, we've had people in the groups that were in their 80s. There's like, I haven't been able to lose 30 pounds since I was,
Yeah,
stuff like that. So it's really wonderful to hear people feel like they've got a new lease on life, and, they can get on the floor and play with the grandkids and things like that.
right.
They can fit in an airplane seat.
Yeah.
That was a big one for me. Here's an auto. My feet used to swell up on the plane, even flying back to my hometown of Winnipeg, which is only a 2.5-hour flight. I'd get back to Winnipeg and I'd have to take off my shoes because my feet were so swollen. And it would take 2 or 3 days for the swelling to go away. And
Wow.
now that doesn't happen anymore.
What books on the subject do you recommend our audience to read? And they might be the two you showed us, if we could go over that one more time.
Mm-hmm. Well, The Obesity Code by Dr. Jason Fung is the classic.
Okay.
And that's more of a science. He's got another few books and a lot of videos on the internet. So you can just do a search for Dr. Jason Fung and find all sorts of things.
Okay, so that's Jason, F like in Frank, UNG, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything by Jen Stevens. Jen has 2 podcasts. One she's not affiliated with anymore, but they did about 250 or 300 episodes with her on it, called the Intermittent Fasting Podcast. Really creative title, but it worked for them. So again, they take questions from the audience and discuss, people having this issue, that issue. Can I do this? Can I do that? All sorts of things. So it's very informative. And she's also got the podcast Intermittent Fasting Stories. And it's people telling their intermittent fasting journey.
Okay.
There was one episode in particular that was just like over the top amazing. I think it was number 17.
Jen is GIN and Stevens is STEPHENS.
Correct.
Correct. Okay,
Yes.
good. All right. We talked
Episode
about
number 17 was mine.
Pardon?
Episode number 17 was my podcast.
Oh, 17. All right, everybody. Number 17 is Fred.
Be sure they're all great podcasts.
Tune into that one. You told us about epigenetics. Tell us about the refeed process.
Oh, okay. That's generally something that you do for a longer fast. So when I do one of these 38, 40, 42 hours, firstly, it's hard to eat right after you've done a fast like that, your body doesn't really feel like eating. So you have to sort of tease yourself into eating and give yourself, some small appetizers and stuff like that. And then you can have another meal. But Jin's guidance is generally that you should have two substantive, and substantive is relative to everybody, two substantive meals after you've done a longer fast so that your body doesn't think that you're in some sort of food crisis, and it won't tank your metabolism.
Okay. Now, Fred, can you tell us about the book you're working on titled The Summer I Died 20 Times, and when will it be out?
Well, that book is my adventures from the summer of 2009, which is what happened to me. I was clinically dead 20 times. And the adventures that I went on, trying to navigate the medical system all the way through 2018, through a couple of botched surgeries and pacemaker failures, and trying to figure out how to heal myself without any serious plan. And your body's pretty smart. It can tell you so many things about how it wants to operate if we can find a way to listen to what it's telling us. And what I've learned is if you eat a lot of ultra processed foods, it blocks your body's signals. You no longer know when you're really hungry. You never know when you're really satisfied. You don't know if you're getting the nutrition you need. So I go into a lot of that and how I found intermittent fasting and what it did for me. Little sarcasm, little dark humor, little Jewish content. It goes all over the map.
Yeah, just curious, but do you eat a lot of organic foods?
No, I don't.
No.
That's one of these things where, as a former marketer, I'm a little suspicious
Okay.
of what things are truly organic, and they've just achieved an organic label.
Right.
You know,
Kind of like the supplement industry.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
can
not
be
really-
cynical about some things.
Yeah. Now, for those struggling out there, Fred, with food issues, can you give them some last words of advice or wisdom?
Sure, we talked about it before. Your attitude is everything, and I'm not saying everything's going to be easy for you. And this isn't a utopian tool, but it's a really good tool. And don't give up on it, because our basic intuition is to compare ourselves to others, and we see all the glamour magazines and all the Instagram photos, and and we forget those are all touched up, and those people look like that for 13 minutes in a month. They don't really look like that, and they're
Right.
miserable. They're miserable because they're dieting so hard. So please don't fall into that trap. There is a way out. And Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor psychiatrist, in his book Man's Search for Meaning, I guess to sum it up, he says, if you have hope, you can overcome anything. And if you have hope that you can cure yourself, that's your biggest superpower.
And that must have, I mean, you must have had a lot of hope between 2009 and, with all that stuff going on and the pacemakers and all that. How did you keep your spirits up?
Well, I'm surrounded by an amazing community that supports me. So that's a big thing. I have a strong belief in God. And I think because my parents struggled with their health issues and I watched them growing up, I've been given a front row seat to how to overcome adversity and to be resilient. And I think I'm blessed with a really strong resilience gene.
That's good. Yeah, that's great.
But
Fred,
I
how
don't
can,
think I'm anyone special. I think, it's like a muscle. You can exercise it and you'll get better at it.
right. Don't give up.
Hmm.
It's the main thing. How can people contact you, Fred?
They can find me on my Instagram Repeatedly Dead Fred. And they can
Okay.
email me if they want, repeatedly.dead.fred@gmail.com.
Okay, I'm going to put that in the podcast notes. I want to thank you so much, Fred, for being on the podcast and sharing your incredible journey back to good health and for alerting us to the world of intermittent fasting. I wish you all the best with the book and your coaching. Comments and suggestions to improve the podcast, you can email me at itsawrapwithrap@gmail.com. You can go on our website, itsawrapwithrap.com. All the episodes are on there. We have a Facebook group, a Facebook page. Our group is growing very nicely. It's in the thousands. It's a Wrap with Rap. Instagram, It's a Wrap with Rap podcast. And all the episodes are on YouTube. It's a Wrap with Rap, the podcast uncut. Thanks everyone for listening. And for now, it's a wrap.